Today's story is about a female group that was naturally captivating and could compete with any women group of their day. Their bizarre space outfits and loud combination of R&B has set this group apart from any other traditional 1960s female group. Not to mention their front women who were going to become an industry superstar. Patti LaBelle and the Bluebelles, or often known as LaBelle, are the subject of today's story. Before we get started in today's video, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to be sure you won't miss out on any more uploads. Now, without further ado, let's cue that intro. The story begins in 1959 with Patricia Patsy Holt, a 16-year-old student at John Bertram High School, had won her first talent show. After winning, Holt decided to start her singing group called the Ordettes with classmates Jean Brown, Yvonne Hogan, and Johnny Dawson. The group never became quite successful in their hometown, but Dawson will soon depart from the group. The group will then replace her with Sandra Tucker. By 1961, Brown and Hogan will leave the group to go on to get married, leaving Holt and Tucker as a duo. Later that year, Holt will meet manager Bernard, who hired Nona Hendrix and Sarah Dash from the New Jersey group the Del Capris. This new group consists of Holt, Tucker, Hendrix, and Dash. This group will soon start working with musician Morris Bailey, and the group's calendar began to fill up quickly. Tucker couldn't keep up with the group's strict schedule, so she will leave and she will be replaced by New Jersey vocalist Sydney Birdsong.
When I was 15, I was singing with the Ordettes, and we had a manager at the time. His name was Bernard Montague.
Montague brought Patsy together with Cindy Birdsong, Sarah Dash, and Nona Hendrix. Together, the four girls formed a close and enduring bond.
This new incarceration of the group had traveled the Chitlin circuit, which helped them develop a good following on the East Coast. In 1962, the quartet auditioned for Harold Robinson's label, Motown Records. Robinson had rejected the group before they could even perform for him because he disliked Holt's appearance. He would instantly change his mind after hearing them sing, and he would sign the group to this label. In 1962, Newtown, they would hold a recording section with a group called the Starlets, who recorded the song I Sold My Heart. Now Robinson, he was unable to promote this single because the group was still under contract with another label. Robinson, he would work around that by releasing the record but renaming the group the Bluebelles. The record will become very popular and it would leave Robinson in the bind. So he would enlist the Ordettes and rename them the Bluebelles to give the song a face. When the Starlet's manager and label had heard what has transpired, they threatened to sue Newtown and Robinson. Robinson, he would get over this once more by renaming Holt Patti and giving her the surname LaBelle, which means the beautiful in French. It's ironic that originally he rejected the group due to him not liking Holt's appearance, but instead gave her the name LaBelle.
In 1962, when Patsy was just 17, Montague arranged for the group to audition for Harold B. Robinson, the owner of Bluebelle Records. Robinson took one look at Patsy and rejected her on sight. He felt that she was too dark and plain to be a lead singer. But when she began to sing, he quickly changed his mind. On April 8, 1962, Robinson signed the girls to their first recording contract as the Bluebelles. However, he felt the name Patsy Holt was too ordinary, so the man who thought she wasn't pretty enough renamed her Patti LaBelle, French for the beautiful.
He will then rename the group Patti LaBelle and the Bluebelles, or otherwise known as Patti LaBelle and her Bluebelles. That same year, the group never released two singles with I Found a New Love and Tear After Tear. 1963, they released 3 singles with Cool Water, Decatur Street, and Down the Aisles. That same year, they released their debut album titled Sleigh Bells, Jingle Bells, and Bluebelles. In 1964, they released 3 more singles, and these were You'll Never Walk Alone, One Phone Call Will Do, and Danny Boy. The group's popularity began to increase rapidly. Once the group's contract with Motown had ended, they were signed with Atlantic in hopes of going mainstream in 1965. Their first single for Atlantic was titled All or Nothing. If you see him. That same year, they would gain so much popularity by providing backup vocals for Wilson Pickett's first major hit. The group's second album, Over the Rainbow, was released that same year, and it had peaked at number 20 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. Now, due to the group's popularity, they would gain a performance on the UK show Ready Steady Go. The UK audience took well of the Bluebelles, so they would begin touring extensively throughout the UK. Now, while in the UK, they would also perform with local bands, one of which was Bluesology, which featured a teenage pianist named Reg DeWhite, who would go on to become Elton John. In 1966, the group would release 4 more singles, 2 of which had charted, beginning with I'm Still Waiting, and Take Me For a Little While. In 1967, they would release another single titled Always Something There to Remind Me. That next year, they would release their third album titled Dreamer. Now, this album didn't chart, and at the same time, Atlantic, they had signed Aretha Franklin, and they began to focus on her while ignoring everyone else. Later that year, Sydney Birdsong would unexpectedly leave to join the Supremes to replace Florence Ballard.
And then in 1967, Cindy Birdsong abruptly and unexpectedly quit to join the Supremes. For Patty, it was the ultimate betrayal.
When Cindy Birdsong left the group, it was a shock.
It was a painful decision for me to make, and there was a lot of animosity because of it and a lot of bad feelings for a while.
We got a call before our show started saying that she was in Detroit, she was with the Supremes now, and for us to find a replacement. And it was that cold and dry. And I couldn't believe it. I said, am I hearing right? And they told us that she's gone.
When I left the group, I was away from them totally for a year, not even a phone call or a note. So that probably was very hurtful to them. I was so glad to meet up with the girls 1 year after the fact and settle things, you know, just talk out things.
And I said, Cindy, I don't have a problem with you going with them. It's just that it could have been done in a different fashion. You could have told us that you had an offer, and I would have understood.
At this time, it appeared that the two groups was feuding. And as Patty stated on the appearance on Drink Champs in August of 2022, she stated that the Supremes was biting her style.
We would go to Walmart or Walgreens or one of those cheap stores and buy gold outfits. Mm-hmm. And so the next day, the day we wore them, the next day, the Supremes had on the same gold things. So
they were biting your style.
They were biting my style. No, for real. I mean, biting big. I said, girl, we ain't got no money. It's only after we have.
She will also recall Sydney Birdsong's departure from the group to join the Supremes.
We're in Cleveland, ready to go on. There are only 3 Patti LaBelle members. Cindy Birdsong had gone to take Florence Ballard's place with the Supremes. They had been rehearsing her for months, and that night she left us. After it all settled in my bones, I said, thank God she's making more money with them than she was with me. So it was a blessing for her, but do it the right freaking way.
Here's another interview in the late 90s where she also told the same story.
Diana Ross. Oh, that little heifer would come in there and see what we were wearing, and they would go out and find the same outfit. I think we got them from Woolworths. I don't know where we got these stretch gold lame suits. But before we went out, for some reason, we were going on after the Supremes, which didn't make sense to me because they were the big stars. But we went on after them, and of course, we only had that one gold outfit, and they had worn theirs already, so it looked like we were copying off of them. I wanted to pimp slap her, because it was like, why would you go out in something that you know we're going to wear, and that's the only outfit we have? I wanted to beat her up.
LaBelle will contradict herself in a recent appearance on the Jennifer Hudson show on February 8th, 2023. She will say that her and Diana Ross never had an issue.
I think we're doing We Are Family, that sung by Sister Sledge. And people think that we had something against each other, but we really never did. It was just the way people perceive certain things. But that's my dog.
Yes.
Okay?
Now, when Birdsong left, they was in the middle of a tour, and they would call on a familiar face, and Sanjay Tucker would come to fill in. Now, Tucker, she would maintain her career after the group's tour. After Tucker left, after the tour, the rest of the group, they would remain as a trio. Heavy rock and glitter soul became dominant to Atlantic, and the trio, they didn't match the label's approach. They was dismissed. The group's long-term manager will also quit on the group to focus on other successful acts, such as the Delphonics. But the group needed new managers. Before making this decision, the group, they would take a step back and they would enlist the help of a very familiar face, Vicky Rickhelm, who had previously booked the group for their very first UK gig. Rickhelm, she encouraged the group to relocate to London and modify their appearance by advising them to ditch everything and simply go by the name LaBelle. The trio, they will eventually accept this advice, and they will also abandon the wigs, skirts, and earthy appearance in favor of afros and jeans. In New York, the trio, they will debut this look by backing up The Who. Following their appearance, they will negotiate a deal with Track Records, which was the Who label through Warner Brothers.
When I started working with them, they were at a very low ebb. They were really scraping for gigs. Things had changed, and they hadn't changed. They were still dressing the same, they still had the same wigs, they, were doing the same choreography, the same material.
She saw that there was a wonderful group here who needed a little adjustment. And she came with these ideas for us changing our look, changing our song, changing our attitude.
It was obvious that you had three strong women, three very different women, and they weren't being utilized.
Their fourth album was simply titled LaBelle, and it was released in 1971. The following year, they released their fifth album titled Moon Shadow, which peaked at number 42 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. Now, despite not being commercially successful, these two albums was critically praised and established the group as a progressive soul group. Around 1973 and 1974, LaBelle, they would modify their act again, but this time to stand out, and they would begin performing in spacesuits, feathers, and studded costumes by the advice of Larry Legaspi. The group contract with Warner Brothers was expired in 1973, and they would go on to release a one-off album with RCA titled Pressure Cooking. In 1974, the group, they would ink a deal with Epic Records and they would release their eighth album titled Night Birds. This album had peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Top 200 charts, number 4 on the Billboard Top R&B Album charts, also selling over 1 million copies, going certified gold. This album produced 2 big singles with Lady Marmalade and What Can I Do For You?
People want truth or nothing at all.
The trio, they would become the first rock group to ever perform in the Metropolitan Opera House. In 1975, they would release Phoenix, which was their 9th album that had peaked at number 44 on the Billboard Top 200 charts and number 10 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. This album will also provide us with 2 hit singles with Messing With My Mind
And I told you that what you're doing ain't getting through. Hey, why do you keep singing that?
and For As We Felt Like Going.
Did you did me, I did you did.
That following year, they would release their 10th album titled Chameleon, which peaked at number 94 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 21 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. There was 2 big singles from this album titled Get You Somebody New
If you want somebody to be your slave, get you somebody new. If you want somebody.
and Isn't It a Shame.
How is it that 2 people?
Despite receiving critical praise, these 2 albums did not achieve the same level of popularity as the Nightbirds album. By 1976, tensions was on a rise as the group struggled for success. Each member had a unique vision for the group. Patty, she desired more soul music, while Hendrix desired more rock, and Dash, she desired disco. On December 3rd, 1976, during a concert in Baltimore, Hendrix, she will stroll off the stage into the audience at the start of the song, Can I Speak to You Before You Go to Hollywood? The group's manager was able to get her to go backstage, but once when she got there, she would lock herself in her dressing room and she would begin to bang her head against the wall until it bled. Hendrix, she was ultimately removed by restraints, and Patty, she will advise the group to disband and go their own ways for the sake of their members and to preserve their friendship. They will all agree and they will all take a break by the end of 1976 after being together for over 14 years. Until 1991, Hendrix, she had 3 Billboard chart-topping albums, with her self-titled album, which peaked at number 83 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 25 on the Billboard Top R&B Album charts. The Art of Defense, which peaked at number 167 on the Billboard 200 charts, and Female Trouble, which peaked at number 96 on the Billboard 200 charts, also peaking at number 30 on the Billboard Top R&B Album charts. During this time, Hendrix's most popular singles was Keep It Confidential,
Why don't you strip me bare? Feel the truth.
and Why Should I Cry?
Spending my days waiting for you in vain. All I
Dash's solo career was quite successful despite the fact that she didn't have a charted album or a song. She got known for her natural skill by backing up for the Rolling Stones and Keith Richards' band Expensive Winos. While Patty did go on to become an international superstar with hits like New Attitude,
was riding into overload. It was extreme.
Stir It Up,
I can't sit here while I go nowhere.
and On My Own,
On my own. On my
she will also get a lot of attraction from her songs being featured on movies like Beverly Hills Cops and also performing at the 1995 Super Bowl halftime show. During her career from 1976 to 1991, LaBelle had accumulated 5 gold albums and 2 platinum albums. Now the trio, they would reunite for the song Release Yourself that was featured on Patti LaBelle's Grammy-winning album Burning in 1991. That next year, they would rejoin each other on stage at the Apollo Theater. 4 years later, they would rejoin each other once more for the dance hit Turn It Out for the film To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. In 1999, all 4 members of the Bluebelles will reunite to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Rhythm and Blues Foundation. The trio, they will reunite in 2006 for the Hendrix-penned song, De Rosa. 2 years later, they will rejoin each other, this time for an album titled Back to Now. Now, this album had peaked at number 45 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 9 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. This was their first recorded album as a group in over 32 years. The trio, they will shortly embark on a tour which had lasted through 2009, and they will continue occasionally to tour together afterwards. On September 18th, 2021, Sarah Dash performed with Patty, and the world was struck by some tragic news 2 days later when Dash had passed abruptly on September 20th at the age of 76. As of this recording, her death is still unknown to the general public. Many female groups like En Vogue and Destiny Child was heavily influenced by LaBelle. LaBelle was also known as the pioneer of the disco movement. In fact, their single, Lady Marmalade, was the first disco song to ever go mainstream.